Hello and welcome back to the Tech Blackboard. Today in part 4 of AZ-900 updated Q&A series, I bring a set of 35 questions of which some are completely new questions and some questions are there to clear your doubts from our earlier series on AZ-900. And as always, if you find this video useful in your cloud learning, please do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel and press that notification bell. Earlier in this series, we have already covered 100 questions divided in 3 parts. So in total, we have covered 135 questions in this series, including this part 4. As many of you might be joining us for the first time today, I would specifically like to mention that besides these 4 parts covering 135 questions, I have already released a video that contains 191 questions on AZ-900. And you can note the thumbnail of this video right in the middle of your screen. And friends, almost 70,000 viewers have watched this video and got benefited in their AZ-900 certification exam. The link for this video is now available in the card section on the top right corner and in the description box where you will find the links for all our other videos as well. You can get a free PDF file containing all the 35 questions with answers from this video if you tell me the correct answers for the question number 107, 110, 122 and 135. All the answers are discussed in this very video itself. And of course, you can use this PDF file for your offline learning as well. So let's begin our part 4 with question number 101. The question says North America is represented by a single Azure region. You have to tell whether it's a true or a false statement. The correct answer is that this is a false statement. Reason being that North America has several Azure regions including West US, Central US, South Central US, East US and Canada East. So North America is not a single Azure region, but it has multiple Azure regions. Moving on with question number 102. This one says Azure Web App, Azure Logic App and Azure SQL Database are examples of platform as a service. You have to tell true or false. The correct answer is true. So all these services that I have mentioned in this question are example of platform as a service. Now let's move to question number 103, and this one says DNS server runs on a virtual machine is an example of PaaS or platform as a service. Whether this is a true statement or it's a false statement. The correct answer is that this one is a false statement. And the reason is that in general, PaaS or platform as a service is about a platform where a developer can assign and deploy an application. So in a regular DNS server that runs on a virtual machine, this is not a PaaS offering. And Azure Virtual Machine is considered as IaaS or infrastructure as a service as it offers computing resources. And that's why DNS server running on virtual machine is not considered as PaaS offering. Moving on with question number 104. This one says SQL Server installed on a virtual machine is a SaaS or software as a service. The correct answer of this question is false. And the reason is that if you install SQL Server on a virtual machine manually or by using out-of-the-box image, it is still a virtual machine. And as I just mentioned, virtual machine is considered as infrastructure as a service. So this means that as a customer, you still need to manage all the platform aspects. In simple words, you have to maintain the operating system settings, patches, middleware, and SQL Server runtime settings. And that's why this is not a software as a service. Now let's jump to question number 105. And this one says that Azure SQL Database is an example of PaaS or platform as a service. The correct answer for this one is true. Please mind that in question number 104, we discussed about SQL Server on virtual machine. And in this question, we are discussing about Azure SQL Database. So there is a difference between both of them. Whenever you are getting these questions, please read the Azure service very carefully before answering the question. And here is a quick explanation that customers who purchase Azure SQL Database don't need to maintain anything related to SQL platform because Microsoft manages that. They just need to use it by deploying their tables and data and consuming it within their application. And that's why this is a platform as a service. It's not a software as a service because they still need to maintain the database in order for their applications to work. Now let's move to question number 106, and this one says that Azure Files is an example of SaaS or software as a service. The correct answer for this question is false. And the reason for this one is that Azure Files is a PaaS or platform as a service offering provided by Microsoft that is built on top of Azure Storage. It provides fully managed file shares over a protocol called SMP or server message blocks. Friends, you might get many questions in AZ-900 exam where you would need to categorize different Azure services as IaaS, PaaS or SaaS. So I have tried to cover many Azure services in these 6 questions and also gave you the logic behind categorizing them as IaaS, PaaS or SaaS. If you still have some doubts or want to learn IaaS, PaaS and SaaS in more details, then do watch this video on your screen. The link for the same is available in the description box. And now let's jump to question number 107. The question says that cloud computing leverages virtualization to provide services to multiple customers simultaneously. You have to tell whether it's a true or a false statement. The correct answer is true. Virtualization is core for any cloud service, be it Azure, Google Cloud or AWS. And to all my viewers, if you or your friends are also preparing for DP900, AZ-104 or AI900, then these are the videos that you can refer for your preparations. You can see that we have covered a lot of questions for each of the examination series. And to further help you learn in offline mode, you can get a free PDF file containing all the questions with answers discussed in this series. Now let's move to question number 108. The question says that you need to identify the type of failure for which an Azure availability zone can be used to protect access to the Azure services. What should you identify? Your options are a storage failure, an Azure region failure, a physical server failure, or an Azure data center failure. The correct answer for this question is an Azure data center failure. A little bit more on availability zone. So availability zones expand the level of control. You have to maintain the availability of the applications and the data on your virtual machines. An availability zone is a physically separate zone within an Azure region. Moving on with question number 109, the question says that use DDoS protection service in combination with a web application firewall for protection at both Layer 3 and Layer 4 offered by DDoS protection standard and the Layer 7 offered by WAF or web application firewall. Your options are physical security, identity and access, perimeter, network, compute, application and data. And the correct answer for the first blank, this one is network, and the second blank here is application. Now let's move to question number 110. The question says a company is planning on deploying Microsoft Azure resources to a resource group, but the resources would belong to different location. Can you have resources that belong to the same resource group but in multiple location? The correct answer for this question is yes. And the reason is that when creating a resource group, you need to provide a location for that resource group. Now friends, in the past also I have been asked many times, why does a resource group need a location? And if the resources can have different locations than resource group, why does the resource group location matter at all? And if these kind of questions bother you as well and you are looking for the answer, then you must watch this video that is now available on your screen. And in this video, you will find answers to all the questions that you have in your mind related to Azure Resource Group. There are a lot of exam tips in this video along with a hands-on lab on Azure Resource Group. So do watch this video, as understanding Resource Group is not only beneficial for the AZ-900 examination, but it is also important that you understand Resource Group because this is a core essence of managing all the resources in Azure. So much so that you cannot create any Azure resource without a resource group. Now let's read question number 111. The question says a company is planning on hosting an application on a set of virtual machines. The virtual machines are going to be running for a prolonged duration of time. Which of the following should be considered to reduce overall cost of virtual machine usage? Your options are premium disk, virtual machine skill set. The third option is Azure reservation, and the last one is Azure resource group. The correct answer for this question is option C, Azure reservation. And this is the Microsoft documentation on what are Azure reservation. Here you can read that Azure reservation help you save money by committing to 1 year or 3 year plan for multiple products. Committing allows you to get a discount on resources you use. Also note that reservation can significantly reduce your resource cost by up to 72% from pay-as-you-go prices. You can read a lot on Azure reservation on this documentation. The link for this documentation is available in the description box. Now let's move to question number 112. This one says, what are the two characteristics of public cloud? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Your options are dedicated hardware, unsecured connection, limited storage, metered pricing, or self-service management. And the correct answers for this question are metered pricing and self-service management. Now let me give you reasoning behind each of the option. So dedicated hardware, which is a wrong option because in public cloud, you don't have a dedicated hardware. It is actually shared among multiple customers. Coming to the unsecured connection, and this is not the case because connections in public cloud are very secure. Then we have limited storage. This is also not the characteristic of public cloud because storage is not limited in public cloud. You can have as much storage as you like. And then we have metered pricing, which is a correct answer because cloud does provide metered pricing as you pay for the resources that you use. And then we have self-service management, which is also correct because cloud provides a self-managed service as you can use the portal to add, change, and remove the resources you want and when you need them. Now let's read question number 113. The question says NSG or Network Resource Group can be applied to what level? Is it subscription level, subnet level, management group level, virtual machine, or NIC level? The correct answer for this question is option B, subnet level, and option D, virtual machine or NIC level. Now let me give you a little bit more detail on NSG. So NSG is majorly used for filtering traffic in and out of the virtual network in Azure. And as I just showed you, NSG can be applied on two levels. The first one is subnet. So if you implement NSG at subnet level, all the virtual machines in that subnet will be applied with the rules imposed in the NSG. And then we have the virtual machine or NIC level. And if you apply the NSG at virtual machine or NIC level, the rule will be implemented only for that virtual machine. By the way, if you don't know, NIC means Network Interface Card. Now let's move to question number 114. The question says, what are different level of access tiers for blob data? Select all applicable options. Your options are hot tier, cold tier, archive tier, or permanent tier. The correct answer for this question is option A, hot tier, option B, cold tier, and option C, archive tier. A little bit more explanation on each of this. So you use hot tier in case of frequently accessed data. On the other hand, the cold tier is used when you have infrequently accessed data or lower availability and higher durability. And then the archive tier is used when you access that data very rarely. And with that quick information on access tiers, let's move to question number 115. The question says, what is Azure Policy Initiative? Your options are a collection of policy definitions, collection of Azure policy definition assignments, or group of Azure blueprints definition, or group of role-based access control, or RBAC. The correct answer for this question is option A, a collection of policy definitions. Quickly jumping to question number 116, and it says that what is guaranteed in an Azure service level agreement for virtual machine? Is it guaranteeing uptime or feature availability, or does it guarantee bandwidth, or does it guarantee the performance? The correct answer for this question is uptime. So whenever you're talking about Azure service level agreement, you're always talking about uptime of the virtual machines. Now let's move to question number 117, and it says that which statement accurately describes the modern lifecycle policy for Azure services? Your options are given here. The first one is Microsoft provides mainstream support for a service for 5 years, or Microsoft provides a minimum of 12 months notice before ending support for a service. The third option is after the service is made generally available, Microsoft provides for the service for a minimum of 4 years. And the last option is when a service is retired, you can purchase extended support for the service for up to 5 years. The correct answer for this question is option B. Microsoft provides a minimum of 12 months notice before ending support for a service. Now let's jump to question number 118, which is a yes/no kind of question. Now let's read the first statement. It says most Azure services are introduced in private preview before being introduced in public preview and then in general availability. The correct answer for this statement is yes. I've got one more question on private preview, public preview and general availability, so keep watching the video. Then in the second statement, it says that Azure services in public preview can be managed only by using Azure CLI. And the correct answer for this one, of course, is no. And the reason is that you can manage Azure services in public preview not only using Azure CLI, you can also use Azure Bash and all the other options available for any service which is in general availability. Now comes the third statement, and this says the cost of an Azure service in private preview decreases when the service becomes generally available. The correct answer for this one is no. And the reason is the cost of the service remains the same. Now let's take one more yes/no kind of question in question number 119. Let's read the first statement. The statement says with a consumption-based plan, you pay a fixed rate for all the data sent to or from virtual machine hosted in the cloud. The correct answer for this question is no. Then the second statement says with a consumption-based plan, you reduce overall cost by paying only for extra capacity when it is required. The correct answer for this one is yes. And then we have the third statement which says serverless computing is an example of consumption-based plan. The correct answer for this one is yes. Now let's read question number 120. The question says that Azure services in public preview can be managed by using which of the management tool? Your options are Azure Portal and Azure CLI. The correct answer for this question is option A and option B as well. Now friends, you might be thinking that I have selected both the option by mistake, but this is not a mistake. You can actually manage the Azure services in public preview using both Azure Portal and Azure CLI. Now let's do one more yes/no kind of question in question number 121. First, let me give you answers to all the statements and then I will give you a little bit more details on NSG and how you can work with it. So the first statement says that you can associate network security group to a virtual network subnet. And the correct answer for this statement is yes. Moving on with the second statement, this one says that you can associate a network security group to a virtual network. The correct answer for this statement is no. And now let's move to the statement number 3. It says that you can associate a network security group to a network interface. The correct answer for this statement is yes. A very quick info on NSG, you can associate 0 or 1 network security group to each virtual network subnet and network interface in a virtual machine. Now let me take you to Microsoft site where you can read more about network security group and how you can use them to filter out network traffic. So here is the Microsoft documentation on network security group filtration on network traffic. You can read here that you can use Azure Network Security Group to filter network traffic to and from Azure resources in an Azure virtual network. Lot of details are given in this page, how you can filter out the inbound traffic, how you can work with the outbound traffic. So read this page. The link for this page is available in the description box. And friends, besides this documentation, you can also refer question number 113, that is question number 113 of this part 4 only. In that question, I detailed out how you can use network security group and on which level you can apply network security group. So do watch that question. Now let's move to question number 122. You can enable just-in-time virtual machine access by using, your options are Azure Bastion, Azure Firewall, Azure Front Door or Azure Security Center. And the correct answer for this question is option D, Azure Security Center. And here comes little bit more details. It says that just-in-time virtual machine access feature in Azure Security Center allows you to lock down inbound traffic to your Azure virtual machines. This reduces exposure to attacks while providing easy access when you need to connect a virtual machine. And besides that quick info, you can also come to this Microsoft website, which talks more about just-in-time access. It's a lengthy document and you can read whenever you have good time to read. And the link for this page is available in the description box. Now let's move to question number 123. The question says a company is using containers for deploying all of its web application. During a security audit, you notice that Microsoft Defender for Cloud is not being used properly to provide misconfigurations related to containers. For which resource can you not use Microsoft Defender for Cloud to secure the containers? Your options are Azure Kubernetes Service, Container Host, Azure Container Registry, or Azure Container Instance. The correct answer for this question is option D, Azure Container Instance. Azure Container Instance does not use Microsoft Defender for Cloud. ACI is a service that allows you to run containers in cloud without using virtual machines. And with that, let's jump to question number 124. It says that you have an Azure environment. You need to create an Azure virtual machine from a tablet that runs on Android operating system. What are three possible solutions? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. And please note that each correct selection is worth 1 point. Your options are use Bash in Azure Cloud Shell, use PowerShell in Azure Cloud Shell. The third option is use the Power Apps portal, use the Security and Compliance Admin Center, or the last option is use the Azure portal. The three correct solutions for this question are use Bash in Azure Cloud Shell, use PowerShell in Azure Cloud Shell, and of course use Azure portal, which can be accessed through any browser. And we can see in the question that our user is using a tablet and that is running on Android operating system, and of course that supports browsers. Moving on with question number 125, it says that Azure Site Recovery provides fault tolerance for virtual machine. And the instructions for this question is that you have to review the underlying text, which is this Azure Site Recovery. And if this makes the entire statement correct, then you have to choose no change needed. Otherwise, to make this statement correct, you have to choose one of these three given options. So let's check out the correct answer, which is option B, disaster recovery. Now let me tell you a little bit more about Azure Site Recovery that helps ensure business continuity by keeping business apps and workloads running during outages. Site Recovery replicates workloads running on a physical and virtual machines from a primary site to a secondary location. Now let's jump to question number 126, and this question says an availability zone in Azure has physically separate location across two continents. The instructions given are that you have to review the underlying text, this one, and if this makes the statement correct, select no change needed. Otherwise, you have to select one of these given options. The options given are no change needed, within a single Azure region, within multiple Azure region, within a single Azure data center. The correct answer for this question is option B, within a single Azure region. A quick info on Azure Availability Zone. So Azure Availability Zone is a high availability offering that protects your application and data from data center failure. Availability zones are unique physical locations within an Azure region, and that's exactly what we have chosen as an answer to this question. Now let's move to question number 127 that says a system ability to scale dynamically is called, and the options given are agility, elasticity, or extendability. The correct answer is elasticity. Now let me tell you what exactly it means whenever we say that this system is elastic. So whenever a system is elastic, that means that it can adjust its processing power to match the demand. This means the system can allocate or deallocate resources dynamically. So basically the system can adjust its processing power based on the demand. If the demand goes up, the processing power follows and it also goes up. And similar happen whenever the demand comes down, the processing power also comes down. Moving on with question number 128, it says horizontal scaling and vertical scaling are two types of scaling in Azure. You have to tell whether it's a true or a false statement. The correct answer is that this is definitely a true statement. Now let me tell you a little bit more on horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. So keep in mind, whenever we are talking about auto scale, it means that we can always scale horizontally, which means an increase, which is sometimes also called scale out, or decrease, which is also called scale in number of virtual machine instances. So what exactly is horizontal scaling? So horizontal scaling is more flexible in cloud situation as it allows you to run potentially thousands of virtual machines to handle the load. On the other hand, the vertical scaling is different. It keeps the same number of virtual machine but makes the virtual machine more, or also called scale up, or less, also called scale down, powerful. In very simple words, horizontal scaling means that you can increase or decrease the virtual machine to match the demand. And in contrast, in vertical scaling, we do not increase or decrease the virtual machine itself. However, we increase or decrease the processing power of the available virtual machine. I hope I'm able to give you a quick introduction what are the differences between horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. So now let's move on to question number 129. And the question says, which of the following is correct lifecycle of Azure services? So is it like private preview, then public preview, and then generally available? Or the second option is dev preview or development preview, and then public preview, and then generally available? The correct answer for this question is option 1, which means that all the Azure services first come in private preview, and then they come in public preview, and then they are generally available. Now let's move to question number 130. The question says that you can create group policies in Azure Active Directory. You have to tell a true or a false statement. The correct answer, it is a true statement. Moving on with question number 131, it says that you can join Windows 10 devices to Azure Active Directory, and this one is a true statement. And then we have question number 132, which says that you can join Android devices to Azure Active Directory, and this one is a false statement. Now let's check out question number 133. The question says that which resources can be used as a source for a network security group inbound security rule. Your options are application security groups only, IP address only, service tags only, or IP addresses, service tags, and application security groups. And the correct answer for this one is, of course, option D. And now let's jump to question number 134. And the question says that you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1. You sign into Azure portal and create a resource group named RG1. Now from the Azure documentation, you have the following command that creates a virtual machine named VM1. And this is the command. You can see this command. And further it says that you need to create VM1 in subscription 1 by using the command. The solution given is that from the Azure portal, launch Azure Cloud Shell and select bash. Run the command in the Cloud Shell. So basically you have to run this command in Azure Cloud Shell. So the question is asking whether this solution meets the goal. And the correct answer for this question is yes. Now let me show you one more variation of the same question. And that's presented in question number 135. The question is exactly the same. However, this time the solution given is that from a computer that runs on Windows 10, install Azure CLI. And then from the command prompt, sign into Azure and run the command. Does this meet the goal? And friends, as per my understanding, this is a correct solution. And the reason is that I think that Windows 10 or Azure CLI here are a bit of a distraction, and they both are redundant in this question. Because the main point is that you sign into the Azure portal and then run the command from the Azure portal. And of course, this is quite possible to run this command from the Azure portal. However, I understand that you might be seeing other variation of this question on various other sites. So I would be really happy to discuss this question. So please do share your thoughts on this question in the comment section, and then we can have a discussion further on this question. And those were the 35 questions that we covered in part 4 today. In total, we have covered 135 questions in this series on AZ-900 updated question and answers. I would once again like to mention that for full course coverage on AZ-900, you must watch our previous video with 191 questions on AZ-900 along with this series with 135 questions. The thumbnail of the previous video is shown on the screen and the link is also available in the description box. And that was all in this series. I'm eagerly waiting for your feedback, and please appreciate our videos with your like, subscribing to the channel, and please do not forget to press that all notification bell as lot of interesting Microsoft exam series are coming up on the Tech Blackboard. I will see you in the next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching. If this video has added any value in your learning, a like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video in your family and friends to spread and expand their learning. Your comments and feedback give me a chance to interact with you, and I look forward for them. We will meet again in our next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.